Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today. As we start, can you say a few words about your current role?
Yeah, hey Misha, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, Jeff Summers. I am VP of Global Sales here at AppSec company called StackHawk. We
Hmm.
are a company focused on modernizing dynamic application security testing and providing in pipeline dynamic testing for more modern software development companies.
I understand. I understand. And as global head of sales, what kind of functions report to you?
Yeah, so the sales team across the US, we're still pretty small.
Mhm.
We don't have a ton of folks yet. So we've got a number of AEs here in the US. Team's growing. We'll probably double here in the next 6 months.
Hmm.
Uh, it's a team of AEs that are reporting up to me. Our co-founder is responsible for the technical sales folks, and
Hmm.
so we're growing fast and adding headcount pretty quickly, which is nice. In the industry right now, that's not the case.
For sure, for sure. I mean, you see some of the,
We're very fortunate.
yeah, some of the, Cyber Reason looking for strategic options. Sentinel-1 was rumored to be acquired by Wiz, and IronNet, they went through SPAC, and I heard last time, I think a couple weeks ago, news came out that they're folding it. So it's
Yeah,
certainly growing is in this kind of environment is amazing. And I guess kudos to the product, kudos to the team.
yeah, absolutely.
And just kind of to get the lay of the land, is it mostly channel, mostly outbound? What's the mix?
Yeah, absolutely. So our company was born 4 years ago with a really strict edict to go help developers find and fix security vulnerabilities before they get to production. So when you
Hmm.
look at historical DaaS products, a lot of them are run in production, late stage environments, which doesn't really support the way modern dev practices have changed over the last 5 to 10 years.
Hmm.
So again, we're an in-pipeline vendor. We were really kind of focused on a PLG motion. So we spent
Mm.
a lot of money on building a rock solid product that does exactly what we say and promise, which is always fantastic to be outselling. And we spent a lot of money marketing it into organizations that come and try create free accounts, sign up for demos, those kinds of things. And
Hmm.
ultimately most of our traction so far has been with, kind of mid-market companies, PLG inbound kind
Hmm.
of high velocity sales motions. But as you mentioned, things have changed in the market. And,
Hmm.
thankfully for us, we're starting to see a lot more enterprises starting to pull us into sales cycles. So while the
Interesting.
kind of SMB venture-backed companies that a high developer count, as a proportion to the company has subsided a little bit just based on funding challenges and a lot of things
Hmm.
that we just talked about.
Hmm.
We're finding that enterprises have modernized, they've gone through their digital transformations. They're starting to look at tools that allow AppSec to be shifted into the development workflow. And that's exactly
Hmm.
what we're designed to do. So
Yes.
it's been really interesting. I've been here for about a year, and it's been really interesting to see over the last 12 months how we're getting pulled in different directions than the
Hmm.
company was originally founded. But it's great. I mean, as our deal sizes are getting bigger, the logos that we're working with are more well known. We're into Fortune 500 companies now, which 3 years
Hmm.
ago was not something that we were really focused on. So it's changed the business significantly. It's allowed us to grow in a challenging time. It's allowed us to take market share from legacy vendors that aren't able to keep up with the change in development environments. And
Hmm.
so, from our perspective, it's really provided great opportunities for the business and for the sales team.
Interesting. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's PLG is sounds like it's a kind of the new mantra, and I think it's kind of taken the industry, not just cybersecurity, but I think in general, a little bit by the storm. And obviously, you see amazing successes like Figma and some of the other examples.
Sure.
Uh, but I think there is a handful of detractors as well who say, well, PLG is only working if your product is amazing and there is nearly infinite universe of potential clients, because it's really to get the top of the pyramid to pay and to make it worthwhile to support the base of the pyramid. The entire pyramid needs to be pretty big as a market, which means not every product would fit this profile. And obviously the product needs to be amazing how you chunk it so that it's kind of a natural progression from free to with the usage to paid and to scale. And obviously not every product lends to that. And it sounds like you do have the product that lends itself to PLG motion. And so it's pretty amazing to hear a success story like this, because I think not some people find that they're trying, by adopting PLG, they're realizing they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole a little bit. So it's interesting, because I think the jury's still out on how many companies it would be worthwhile. So it's awesome that it sounds like you have a product that fits in this profile. That's interesting. And so that kind of paints a picture of where you are, but for listeners to get an idea of the trajectory of the arc of your career, how did you get started in cybersecurity sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So my path is a little bit different than probably a lot of the folks that you're talking about, because I'm relatively new in security. So I've always been a startup guy. I have been somebody who really is passionate about helping small companies, go to market, find their ICP, find their first handful of customers, and really start to execute from there. So this is my 5th company that I've joined. Kind of profile for me is sub 50 people, kind of seed, series A sort of round stages, where the product has been built, but there's still a lot of work to do to figure out how you're going to go sell it and how can you be effective in scaling it. And so for me, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of 5, I guess this is my 6th. I've been fortunate enough to be part of 5 small companies that have grown to acquisition. So, a lot of successful exits, which is really exciting. And it's fun to see the different types of products and the different kinds of markets, working in the database performance world, in testing, in DevOps, in infrastructure management, in security and incident response, a variety of different places. But this is my first, startup that I've worked at in the security space. And so what really drove me and what got me excited about coming to StackHawk, a year ago when I was going through the interview process, was I've been in a lot of situations where I've helped companies who've developed really innovative products that have to kind of cross a gap between where the market typically buys and how the product is designed to use. And that's exactly what StackHawk is doing. DAST historically has been very much AppSec, run scans directed at URLs in production or in staging environments. The AppSec team gets the responses, throws it over the wall via tickets to the developers, and hope things get remediated. So for StackHawk, figuring out how do you break that wall, how do you punch a hole in the wall, how do you help the teams communicate better, how do you build collaboration, how do you help improve relationships sometimes between 2 teams that don't often talk, is something that I've done at multiple startups before. And that's what got me excited to come here. It's Denver based. I live in Denver. Historically, I've worked for a lot of foreign overseas startups. So it's been, really nice to have more than half the company here working, very used to the developer world, speak the developer language, understand the SDLC process very well, and then learning the security buyer and what AppSec is and what it means, and how the world, the changing development world is also changing the way application security needs to respond. So, my career path, been, kind of startup to startup. Luckily for me, knock on wood, pick the right horses, been able to.
Well, it's clearly you have the magic touch, the golden touch. If you want to grow and sell your company, Jeff is your guy.
So luckily, like I said, been fortunate. A lot of it's just like anything in sales. A lot of it's timing. Understanding where the market is. You want to be cutting edge, but you don't want to be bleeding edge. In terms of at least this point in my career, when I was younger, bleeding edge was fine. I didn't have a mortgage and kids to worry about. But now you want to know that there's a market there. You want to go to a company that has customers. You want to know that customers need to buy, those kinds of things, and that's what StackHawk.
But I think it also goes to you've done a good job selecting opportunities, right? So if it's obviously kind of a testament to you're building the team and figuring out the go-to-market motion, but it's also you pick the winning products, the winning teams, which is great. And so from that perspective, you mentioned you worked with a number of startups, but you only recently transitioned from technology to cybersecurity. I think, given how fast this whole space is evolving, up until now, it seems like, every other week there was another cybersecurity company raising funding and building the product. I think that kind of slowed down a little bit. So I think M&A is more active than actually VC fundraising. So you see Cisco's and Rubrik's and Palo Alto's out there picking up some of the products, I guess, building the product lineup.
Yep.
From the perspective, from your experience, like, what have you learned? So for someone who is in a sales role in a technology company but looking to transition to cybersecurity, what are the 2-3 things, the gotchas or the learnings or the things to spend time on? What would you advise executives in technology who interested in making this jump, this transition? What should they think about?
Yeah. So I think at a high level, this makes a lot of sense and was probably pretty obvious. But sometimes you don't know until you kind of get into it. But yeah, having sold to different buyers within technology organizations, everybody's a little bit different. And what I've found is the security buyer, no surprise, is a little more cautious, a little less straightforward. Building champions and relationships at higher levels has proven to be a little bit more challenging, just because inherently they're risk averse, right? It's a market that is that their whole purpose is to avoid risk and make sure that things are secure, right? So when you work with developers, often it's, how do I innovate? How do I go fast? How can you help me be more efficient? Whereas, the security buyer, it's a little bit different. That's important because they are getting pulled by the business to be able to be responsive in ways that allow other parts of the business to go fast and be efficient, but they're still, at the end of the day, responsible to keep things secure. And introducing new things that could change that, is their responsibility to evaluate very strongly. So, for me, like anything, understand who your buyers are and what your strategy is to really market to them. So, our big ethos at StackHawk is, we want to eliminate FUD from, we want to eliminate fear, uncertainty, and doubt from how we market our product. There's a lot of that in security. Don't get caught. Don't be that person. Don't, putting fear in people and positioning yourself as someone who can eliminate that. We as a company, and what really drew me here was, we want to help security understand how they can still do their job while supporting the rest of the business with their objectives as well. And so to answer your question directly, that was a little bit of a roundabout, sort of way to get here, is I think everybody in security needs to start thinking about that and make that mind shift to the way the digital economy has changed. Digital transformations have happened, especially in enterprise, over the past 10 years, where these big companies are developing software as a core competency, whether they want to or not. And as a team, how are you going to respond to that? How are you going to enable that? How can you do your job while not holding people back? And I think the security companies that embrace that over the next few years are going to be the ones that start to rise above the others in terms of, in their segments. For us, it's, DAST, and in other segments, how do you embrace that methodology as opposed to be afraid that something bad's going to happen, and I understand why people take that approach. But I think as things change, just like anything, how do you add value back to the business? And as a security team, embracing that is going to be a really important thing for our buyers and the companies that we're selling to, as well as vendors. How are we designing our go-to-market strategy to support that?
For sure. And I think there is obviously there was a lot of ambulance chasing, and if you look on LinkedIn, some of the ads that you see and some of the messaging, I think it just rubs a lot of people the wrong way, almost to the point, I'm so sorry you were hacked. If only you used our product, it would not have been. It's just,
I read about this in the news. If you would have used our product, it never would have happened.
I don't think anyone will buy from the vendor who leads with that kind of messaging. And just but still people do it. It's interesting. I just want to double click on something that you said, that in early stage startups, they could have a revolutionary product, and clearly there are early signs of a product market fit, which is what everyone is after. It's really it's cutting edge, not bleeding edge. It's well received, But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that to go from there to a robust go-to-market strategy that's actually performing at a high level and selling to enterprise with longer sales cycles, it is a heavy lift as well. So it's not just kind of figuring out the product, it's figuring out how do you sell. And it's kind of goes to the point, to your point that you made, that there's a certain way large organizations buy. And if your go-to-market motion doesn't fit that, then you'll have some headwinds. And specifically what we find, and we talked a lot to cybersecurity professionals, as well as cybersecurity vendors, and one of the interesting kind of wrinkles is that when it's around intent, and a lot of companies find when prospects show intent, they requested a demo. You met them at a conference, you explained the problem, and they're leaning in, they're excited, asking questions. Sales cycles tend to be short, life is good. They go from first conversation to a demo to POC to contract to a referral, and with high net promoter score, everything is awesome. However, often people find that usually those instances are somewhat far few between, so that yes, there is enough of those kind of high velocity deals, but to really grow, to really hit the growth targets, it's not sufficient. And we often find there's a little bit of a dilemma where sales teams are incentivized kind of to go grab as much attention, as many meetings, as many demos as possible, but you're kind of forced to talk to people who are earlier in the customer journey, who are not ready for a demo, they're not ready to be sold. Yep. And it's usually becomes a friction between sales and marketing, between the sales team and the marketplace, who still need time to kind of to walk themselves through the different stages of customer journey before they're ready to have this demo, before they're ready to have this conversation. How do you think about that? How do you think about balancing the needs for the business to grow and kind of hit the sales targets, where it's the goals are maybe kind of reaching, maybe it's once the company's past founder sales, super early stage, once it gets to this A/B rounds where it's really about expansion? How do you think about bridging this gap and kind of smoothing the potential friction between sales and marketing and sales and the marketplace? Loaded question. I granted.
No, it's a good one. It's one we talk about all the time, and as a startup, you sort of think about where you want to be is a step or two ahead of the market. So you want to know where market trends going, and you want to develop a product that is going to support that before they're there, right? But not so far before you don't have enough time, you don't have enough runway for the market to get where you need it to go. And so, for us, I think I always liken it to where we're at right now is, if you're a surfer, and I'm not, so this is sort of a made up metaphor that I don't have personal experience with, but, we're out in the water and we're on the board and we're paddling, right? We see the wave behind us. So we're paddling like crazy, doing all the things you talked about, but at least we can see that wave. We're not sitting out past the break wondering, where's this wave coming from? We can see it and we feel it because these enterprises are coming to us and saying, hey, we know we need to change the way we approach our dynamic application security testing and really our application security posture in general. We know that it needs to move more into the development lifecycle because as an AppSec team, we can't support what's going on in the dev world quickly enough to be able to do our jobs. And so to your point, what that means is we have to do a lot of market education in terms of how our product can help them get to where they know they need to go. And then we need to be able to execute at a tactical level to help them make the transition. Everybody always talks about people, process, and technology. The people in the process part, especially in the enterprise, is more important than the technology. So having good references, understanding where they're at in their buying journey, their maturity level, and then getting back to you where qualification is so important. How do we go out and find these buyers? How do we find people ready and willing to shift dynamic application security testing into their developer workflows? And that's the thing we go back and forth on every day. And I wish there was a good question or a good answer to say, here's exactly what we do to go find it. But
the answer, so in the end of the day, a robust product marketing and demand generation team that supports the sales motion is important because, and even though you may overshoot a little bit, but not by much in terms of the market, kind of you build it not hoping they'll come, but seeing them coming, and you just build a little bit of a head, but not so much that you overextend yourself from. You're not building too much infrastructure to that will be kind of redundant. You're building it in anticipation of the demand that you can see. You can see that's where the market is moving. So it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Jeff, I know we're coming up on time a little bit. I guess a few last questions. If you had a crystal ball and you have a crystal ball, you can see into the future. In that future, cybersecurity sales leaders will think about, be anxious about, excited about what technologies, themes, trends that maybe are playing out now a little bit, but will definitely be prevalent in the future. If there's a cybersecurity sales publication, what will be in the headline?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I think the obvious answer now, is obviously how is AI and everything going on in that space going to affect us as vendors and maybe more importantly our buyers. I think the adoption of that is, this is probably a common answer you're getting all the time, right? But I think it's top of mind. Just how's a company do we adopt it to make our product better, easier to use, more easily consumable for our customers, that provides value in ways that we can't right now. But then also transitioning, as a sales leader, we're always trying to figure out how do we make our product more relevant and understand how people are going to buy it. And so I think for us in particular, being an AppSec, how are our buyers going to utilize this, and how are they going to need to test it? And how do we ensure that we're on the cutting edge of being able to provide a service that allows them to do that? So, if you think 3 to 5 years from now, people need to have a good strategy, but to have a good strategy, you have to understand how the consumption is going to happen. And I don't think we have a good feel for that yet. So, it's something that we as a company know we need to be focused on, and our investors we talk to our investors a lot about it. But it hasn't shaken out to the point where we have a really coherent understanding of how it's going to shift buying behavior. And so we can talk about what we're going to do with it, but what's it going to mean to our customers? What are they going to expect from us? How is it going to change the applications that we're responsible to secure? Those kinds of things are what will be really interesting over the next few years in my mind.
Well, it's early, as you said. It's early. I think it's just moving so fast that a lot of people are thinking it's kind of the third wave. If the first one is the internet, the second the mobile, and the third is AI. So it's evolving and improving at a rate that just breathtaking. So I guess we'll find out soon enough. But actually, I'm curious because it sounds like you think that implications of AI as a technology a bit more on the product side, but do you think it will impact the sales motion as well? I mean, obviously there are chatbots, there are someone is on your website asking a question. It's smart, but not smart enough. But one would think with AI, with natural language processing, you would almost not need a human on the other end, or crafting emails or crafting responses to an email. I mean, or reaching out for a meeting, the SDR BDR job. Do you think AI will impact the actual craft of selling as well?
It will certainly impact it. Absolutely. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I think there's a lot of things. I mean, your sales has undergone quite a bit of change from an automation standpoint, with a lot of different tools out on the market that helps make things faster, easier, less touch points, fewer people required to get meetings set up, to execute, outbound cadences, all those kinds of things. So, in no way is AI not going to affect that and impact that. I'll be really interested to see how much, because at the end of the day, an inbound motion, PLG, I think a lot of that can happen through AI, through, even a lot of the tools that we already have in place. But as salespeople, I think the one thing that we all know and the value that we provide is that personal connection and trust, especially when you get to the larger enterprises, when we're not talking about high velocity, low dollar sales where you don't really need a lot of touch points. When you're talking to big companies that have big, unique environments, trying to solve very tricky problems with legacy technologies, you can't automate that away. And as we all know, so many people are buying from people that they trust, buying from organizations that they think can help them get to where they want to go, solving those three things that we talked about, technology just being one leg of the stool. So, for me, it's going to be a long time before that goes away.
For sure. Well, that's why probably RSA and Black Hat will still be successful businesses in the future as well, because this seeing another person and shaking hands and looking someone in the eye, just as you said, it's cybersecurity is fundamentally a trust business, right? So if you need to meet someone, but also once, but someone said, I don't invest in dots, I invest in lines. It was more from a kind of a VC perspective, but again, you want to see the person being consistent in how they come across and how they deliver on the promise before you actually can make a commitment. So it makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, and I think, to wrap it up, what you're saying, it sounds like, and I agree, I think AI will be more of a tool that amplifies the effort rather than replaces. And maybe at the end of the day, similar to like a co-pilot of sorts, there'll be like a co-pilot, this super smart agent sitting on your shoulder, and it can just offload tasks so that you can 10x the productivity and 10x the output of the same team. So it's more of an amplifier rather than the wholesale replacement. I mean, again, what remains to be seen. Jeff, this was awesome. This was so much fun. Where can people find you? What's the best way to connect?
So obviously on LinkedIn, that's probably the best way to get me. I'm not huge on other social media sites. Jeff Summers, last name's SOMERS, on LinkedIn is probably the best way to get me. Love to chat, love to connect with some of your listeners that, are in the same space and solving the same problems. We learn so much from each other, and combined experience is how people learn the most. So, would love to connect with more of your listeners and viewers.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Misha.